Hello, folks, and welcome back to 10-Minute Elections. Today's date is Wednesday, May 27th, 2020, as I hope everyone once again is staying safe and healthy amid the pandemic. Wednesday means we have a state of the day, and today our inaugural spotlight is on the state of Maine. Three very interesting races in the state of Maine in 2020: the presidential race, the senatorial race, and the 2nd Congressional District House of Representatives race. So let's discuss all three of those in the 10 minutes we have. First, the presidential race. Now, Maine's electorate is over 90% Caucasian. Its electorate is very similar to that of Vermont and New Hampshire. Its electoral tendencies are fairly similar to that of Vermont, New Hampshire. Not necessarily Vermont. Vermont is a story for another time, but like those states, it used to be reliably Republican. In the case of Maine, Bill Clinton flipped it in 1992, and the state has been blue ever since, although Donald Trump did pick off the 2nd Congressional District in 2016. So speaking of which, as we discussed in the last video, Maine is one of two states along with Nebraska that allocates their electoral votes such that 2 electoral votes go to the at-large state popular vote winner, and then 1 electoral vote goes to the winner of each congressional district. So in 2016, Hillary Clinton carried the statewide vote by about 3 points. She carried the 1st congressional district, but Donald Trump actually carried the 2nd congressional district by double digits, becoming the first Republican since the state was Republican to carry the 2nd congressional district. Now, another curious facet of the Maine electoral system is ranked choice voting. I myself heavily endorse ranked choice voting. It certainly ensures that ballots aren't thrown away or wasted, and it minimizes the third party spoiler effect. So, how exactly does ranked choice voting work? Well, here's the brief summary. Say you have 4 candidates in a race for an office. So, on election day, the voters go to cast their ballots, but instead of marking one candidate, they rank their choices. They can rank as few or as many as they like, but they may not skip. So let's say in the initial count for the first choices, candidate A gets 40%, candidate B gets 30%, candidate C gets 20%, and candidate D gets 10%. Candidate D having the least first choice votes is eliminated, and the voters who picked him, those ballots are deferred to their second choice. So say all of the candidate D voters voted for candidate A as their second choice, A would now be at 50%, B at 30%, and C at 20%. Now C is eliminated, and let's say C's voters split their next choices 10 to 10. A would get 10%, putting them at 60, and B would also get 10%, putting them at 40. Now that A has a majority, A would win the election. So because Maine is a fairly liberal state, although, again, independent and liberal is different than democratic, we can expect ranked choice voting to marginally benefit the Democratic Party. However, with such a swingy district and swingy Senate races, ranked choice voting could actually make the difference. So we've discussed the presidential race, as I've pegged the 1st congressional district as safe Democratic territory and the 2nd congressional district as lean Trump territory, but certainly not a guarantee, although very rural and very white. Obviously, this is the exception to the rule in Maine. Let's now move on to discussing the Senate race. As Maine Speaker of the House, Sarah Gideon attempts to unseat incumbent Republican Senator Susan Collins. So the polling data has been very sparse here, as we see Sarah Gideon has a small lead, 2.5 points it says, although one of these polls was done by a Democratic Institute and the other one was done in February. This is pretty typical of polls done in Maine. They're not reliable, and they have larger margins of error than shown. So Susan Collins, when she was re-elected back in 2014, was the most popular senator in the Union, Her approval rating at points got as high as 70%. She was easily reelected in a blue Obama Clinton state. In 2020, however, her Kavanaugh, tax, and impeachment votes are specifically coming back to haunt her, as Sarah Gideon is generally shown to have a small lead, although, again, well within the margin of error, and this is a race that could genuinely go either way. In January, Susan Collins replaced Mitch McConnell as the nation's most unpopular senator. Her approval rating is now in the high 30s. And so she's seeing really her first serious challenge since she was first elected against. And Sarah Gideon is the likely Democratic nominee. She still needs to beat progressive activist Betsy Sweet in the primary. So Susan Collins has the endorsements of Donald Trump and pretty much the entire Senate Republican caucus. Sarah Gideon has the endorsements of most Democrats, although Collins actually has the endorsement of West Virginia Democratic senior senator Joe Manchin. Now, the reason the Maine Senate race is so important, and the reason we're spending time today on the state of Maine, is because this is a state that, along with North Carolina, will probably be the tipping point for the balance in the Senate. Look, right now it's a 53-47 Senate, and I'm projecting the seats in Colorado and Arizona to probably flip. The seat held by Democrat Doug Jones in Alabama will probably flip because it's Alabama. That means that the races that will decide control of the Senate, the big ones anyway, although there are a bunch of them, are the races in North Carolina and Maine. So, with Collins' unpopularity and her reputation as a moderate, considered by many to be tarnished, if Democrats can pick up this seat, assuming they pick up Colorado and Arizona with losing Alabama, that puts them at 49 seats, meaning if Joe Biden can win the presidency, meaning the vice president would be a Democrat, they just need to win one of the states of North Carolina, Montana, Kansas, Iowa, Texas, or one of the two seats in Georgia, along with Kentucky, to gain control of the Senate. Obviously, if Donald Trump is reelected and Mike Pence remains president of the Senate, they would need to pick up two seats. So that's why the Senate race is so important, and it's why we can expect to see both parties pour massive amounts of money into this race. Again, the presidential race shows, as I can pull up the polls right now, it shows Joe Biden with a strong lead, about 10 points. Although it's spotty, we can certainly expect to see this state go much more reliably blue at the presidential level than at the senatorial level, where Susan Collins and Sarah Gideon's race may well decide control of the Senate. All right, so we've talked about the presidential and senatorial races. Let's quickly go over the House race. In Maine's 2nd Congressional District, it is again a lean Republican district, but Jared Golden, a Democrat, was actually able to unseat formerly incumbent Republican Bruce Poliquin in 2018. Golden is one of the most moderate and independent-minded Democrats in the House. He actually split his vote on the articles of impeachment, as did Mitt Romney in the Senate. He voted yes on Article 1 and no on Article 2. Article 2 being the obstruction of Congress charge. Okay? So this is a district that the Cook Partisan Voting Index rates as Republican +2. However, the large margin of error means we can probably rate this race as a toss-up. Jared Golden will be facing, as we can see, any one of these three Republican primary candidates: Adrienne Bennett, Eric Brakey, or Dale Crafts. Again, along with the Senate race, this is going to be extremely competitive, and this is a House race that will go to the left of where the presidential race is most likely. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate your support. I would absolutely love likes and subscribes if you guys enjoyed the video. And please be sure to tune in on Friday when we will be having our grab bag episode. At that point, we will be discussing polling margins of error, and I hope to see you there. Until then, thank you for watching once again. Peace out.